morning. I think we are all set to go. There are more people joining us, but I think we have a lot to cover today. So we will kick off. So thank you very much for joining. I hope all of you are safe, and please do stay safe. Take all the precautions the government has advised us to do. I think let me start by thanking the IIT Madras Alumni Association, Lata, and of course Rakesh, who's been trying to help me get a grip of this technology. So thank you for inviting me to do the session. In fact, they wanted me to do one session, and I said, why don't you do it as a series? I didn't expect that I will end up doing the series, but yeah, I am doing a series of 3. We're going to look at branding from 3 different points of view. Today we'll look at the basics of branding. Tomorrow we'll dive into what I call living the brand, which is of application to any corporate brand, any service brand. And on the third day, we're going to talk of building the personal brand, or how each of us is a brand and how we can do things to ensure that our brand stays alive, active, and energetic. So I'm assuming that all of you can hear me. And let me just check the chat window, whether there's any complaint. Okay, so all of you can hear me, all of you. Yeah, so some old friends here who are dialed in. So thank you. So thank you for joining. In this presentation over the next, now we have 35 minutes, and then we have 10 minutes for question answers. I'll go a little fast. So those of you who want to learn fundas, have your pad open, have a pen open, so that you can write down stuff. So let me quickly go through. This is the guru of marketing, and he said branding is marketing. Where does the word brand come from? The word brand comes from the old way in which cows used to be branded with a hot iron. But in the English language, we have this concept, we have a word for the study of languages, study of words, which is called etymology. Where do different words come from? So, for example, even the word corona word, its origin is not a virus, but it comes from the corona of the sun, and that comes from crown, which is from Latin. So the word brand comes from the Flemish word, brandr, which means to burn. So we are, in fact, what we are doing is, just as farmers used to burn red iron onto cows, what we are trying to do is to burn our brand names into the minds of the consumer. So going back to the basics, what is a brand? A brand is a name, term, sign, symbol, a combination intended to identify the goods and services of one seller or the goods and services. So it's a name, term. It is to identification, it is for differentiation, and it is for separating you from the competition. But this is a very kind of a complex definition. So a simpler definition is this one, which is a brand name is nothing but a name that tells a story. A brand is a name that tells a story. And Claude Hopkins was a very, very famous copywriter and agency called Lord and Thomas, which later became FCB, where I worked for 26 years. He wrote a book called Scientific Advertising, where he wrote this. He didn't say brand name, but I'm saying brand is a name that tells a story. So write down a brand which comes to top of your mind, any brand, and then write down what story comes out of that. So every brand which you remember, I guarantee, will have a story to tell. Whether it is a brand like Cadbury's, or a brand like Santur, or a brand like Vodafone, or a brand like Tata, a brand like Amul. Every brand has a story to tell. So as brand marketers, our primary job is really to help our consumers remember our brand. And in order to help them remember our brand, our job is to put stories into names. And that is the primary job which we do. Now, therefore, a brand is not just a product. It is a product plus images and all the stories which go into the images. So it is not a product or a service. It is more than that. You have to add a lot of intangibles which come to your mind. You have to add the occasions of usage which comes to your mind. And of course, user imagery which comes to your mind. All this put together is really what a brand is. Now, let me just try and show you 3 little examples of brands which got built by telling interesting stories. So this is a story of an entrepreneur who wanted to enter the world of brand. His parents had a chemical company. He wanted to try and do something different. So he launched a beauty soap, which failed. He launched a health soap, which failed. Then he launched a very commodity kind of product that also failed. And then he launched it in a refreshed form, a basic product. It succeeded. He managed to sell it 20 years ago, 145 crores. He made 100 crore profit out of that. Okay, the brand I'm talking about is a brand called Captain Cook. Now, interestingly, yesterday or day before at the grocery shop, I saw someone getting a pack of Captain Cook salt, and I'm going to play or try to play a video of the Captain Cook ad. Let's hope it plays.
पूछो मत, उस कैप्टन कुक आटा वालों ने तो हम किसानों की नाक में दम कर दिया है। उस कंपनी को तो गेहूं बेचना मुसीबत मोल लेना है। कहते हैं गेहूं का रंग एकदम चटक चाहिए, दालों का आकार एकदम सुडौल चाहिए और दाने इतने भरे हो कि मुट्ठी में लेकर हिलाओ तो दाना दाना खसके। इतनी खिटखिट जैसे गेहूं नहीं सोना खरीद रहे हो।
अरे इतनी खिटखिट करके कोई सोने जैसा गेहूं खरीदेगा तो आटा अच्छा ही होगा ना, वरना आओ और इतनी रोटियां।
कैप्टन कुक, तुमने कैप्टन कुक का आटा आजमाया? कैप्टन कुक आटा सोने जैसे गेहूं से बना। हाँ ठीक है, एक रोटी और दे।
So what is the Captain Cook story? The Captain Cook Atta story is simple. It's about, Sone Jaise Gehu. Sone Jaise Gehu, which makes the roti so soft that the husband doesn't know how many rotis he's consuming. Okay, interesting story which got put into the brand name Captain Cook. Let's go to another story, which is of an old brand. It's a 100-year-old brand. And they want to do something very, very different. And this is a story from 3 years ago, and this became they did something primarily on social media, and it became an outstanding success. It got written about in Wall Street Journal, Ad Age, and Harvard Business Review. It won a ton load of awards. It also put the brand on a new trajectory. The brand I'm talking about is a brand called Oreo, which many of you would have consumed. So let me play this video and hope that it plays well.
Little girls have pretty curls, but I like Oreo.
Oreo recently celebrated a big birthday. Really big. Turning 100 can mean only one thing. You're old. Really old. Unless you give it a twist. The Oreo Daily Twist. A simple idea to make this old brand a vital part of pop culture, the digital world, and everyday conversation all at once. 100 pieces of content created in 100 days in honor of the 100th birthday. 100% responsive. Here's how it worked. Every morning, we searched for what people were talking about and looked at it through the innocent eyes of this playful cookie. Once concepts were developed, there was a full production team ready to execute. By the end of the day, we pushed the twist out to Oreo's 30 million Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter followers and archived it on Oreo's online hub. How did we kick it off? Well, maybe you heard about that.
Oreos are gay.
Monday night, Oreo posted this on their Facebook page.
It's not black and white anymore. It's pink, it's orange, it's yellow, it's green, it's blue. It's a gay Oreo cookie, man.
But we didn't stop there. And neither did the fans. Feedback was instant and passionate. Every fan seemed to have a different favorite and didn't mind sharing their thoughts. What did we do for number 100? We set up a temporary ad agency at the crossroads of the world, Times Square. We took suggestions live and executed on the spot. In just 100 days, we turned an old cookie into an icon. Oreo didn't just reflect the news, it became the news. And we made 100 years old look pretty young.
The great thing about a long-running brand like Oreo is that for many, many years, they've stuck true to their one key message, which is twist, lick, and dunk. The whole thing about twisting the cookie, dipping it in, licking it, and then dipping it in milk and eating it. And so this campaign, they made a twist out of the twist. They called it the Daily Twist. And it became so popular that a year later, when I was visiting Facebook, it was this campaign. The Daily Twist was named as the most successful campaign to have run on Facebook that year. So, and it got written about as a Harvard Business Review case study as well. So Oreo, which is an old brand, got this whole new exciting way of presenting itself using the Daily Twist, and that got the brand a new energy. So let's move to a third example, which is from India, a young MBA from one of the IIMs working in an FMCG MNC. He had an epiphany when he saw that his colleagues were running and grabbing copies of Business India and running and rushing to the last page of Business India. And those of you who don't read magazines, who probably never picked up a Business India those days used to have close to 30-40 pages at the end of the magazine dedicated to ads for brand managers and marketing managers and material managers and finance managers. So all the guys were running to look at what are the job openings available. So this guy said, look, why don't I start something which taps this executive job hunt? He raised some money he started the company, bootstrapped it, and then he raised some money from VCs. The brand I'm talking about is a brand called Naukri.com, which some of you may be aware, some of you may have used. And after some time, he hired an agency, and the agency struggled on how to communicate the story. Finally, they latched on to this interesting reason. Why do people quit jobs? They may say that they are quitting because of better pay, or better job title, or better company, or better location, or better perquisites. But often the real reason why they're quitting a job is because they don't like the boss. So let me try and play this ad for you. All of you may remember another ad which was done for this brand, which featured a very famous character called Hari Sadhu that went on to become celebrated as one of the ads of the decade. So Naukri got this story put in that you quit your job because you don't like your boss. And then Naukri went on to become a very successful IPO, Info Edge, and Sanjeev Bikhchandani is named today as one of the hottest VCs in the country, and he's also in the part of the Forbes billionaires list. And I would imagine the first billionaire of this era, which is the the digital era. So why are brands important? Why do brands matter? Some years ago, Naomi Klein wrote a book called No Logo. I think this came out in 98 or so. And where she said that, now that internet is here, consumers have become very, very knowledgeable. They will not fall for this branding bullshit. They know all these shoes which are sold at $40 and $50 are made in China at $3. And so tomorrow a Chinese brand will come and price it at $5 and people will buy that. Her book came, and 2 years later, Economist wrote a cover story called Pro Logo, where they questioned the whole logic. And they said, brands matter both to consumers and to manufacturers. Why does it matter to consumers? For consumers, brand is an identification of source of product. I know that if there's a problem with this product, I can go back. I can go and catch someone who made that product. Every product today, you buy a mop. If the mop doesn't work, you can complain, and the mop manufacturer will come and replace it. And I'm not joking. We had something to happen to a brand called Gala Mop, which did not function in 3 days. All it took was one message on their Facebook page. Within 48 hours, the mop got replaced. Okay, so responsibility, it reduces risk. You don't need to think 50 times which soap to buy, which toothpaste to buy, which mop to buy, because if you buy this particular brand, you get a particular level of quality and reliability. It reduces your time to buy. You don't need to spend hours and hours searching. It's easy. Buying is becoming so easy. So brands serve is a big help to consumers. A brand is also a promise, a bond, a pact that you have with the person you buy it from. And of course, brand is a symbolic device, and especially in prestige brands, it is a huge symbol of what car you get on, what watch you're wearing, or what handbag you're carrying. So it's a symbol of quality. So consumers are okay that brand marketers are making extra money because they're getting all these benefits. What about manufacturers? Why do manufacturers love brands? Again, brands help you in identification, simplify in handling and tracing. It legally protects you from being copied. It is a signal of quality to satisfy customers. It is a way of putting, like I said, stories into names, and it is a big source of competitive advantage. And finally, brands are a huge source of financial returns. If you take a company, take its market cap, let's say a company like Disney, its market cap maybe $500 billion, and then you look at the book value of what they have in terms of their assets. You take out all those assets, what you are left with is really what is the value of the brand. So brands are a source of great financial return. So the next question which I want to ask is, can everything be branded? Now, 40, 50 years ago, the basic concept of branding was more popular among the FMCG marketers. And of course, the whole branding thing started in America and in UK more with what they call patent medicine, cough syrups and headache medicines and stuff like that. But today we have branding everywhere. So you have brands which are physical goods like products, you have services like hotels, airlines which are brands, you have retailers which are brands, your Reliance, your Big Bazaar, you have online products and services which are brands, your Big Basket, Flipkart, people and organizations. WHO is probably the brand which everyone is turning up to today for advice. So that is a brand. WHO is a brand. Sports, arts and entertainment brand. And of course, in India, the biggest sports brand which has come up in the last, 15 years is IPL. This year, I don't know whether it's going to happen. And of course, Olympics, huge brand. Geographic locations and so many states are advertising today. Not only India, but you've got different states of India advertising. As you know, Kerala has got its own country, etc., etc. And ideas and causes are brands. PM Cares is a new brand which has been launched for the Prime Minister Relief Fund to collect money, which goes straight into the COVID-19 support activities. So brands can be in all type. However, there is an interesting dissenting voice on brands. It comes from a guy called Mark Harris, who's a editor at GQ, said the day the movies died. So his point of view was that in a creative industry, like say movies, when a movie becomes a brand, it loses a lot of its original. So unless the director, the producer is very consciously putting new things into the content, the brand will die. I mean, the classic case of a sequel being worse than the former, of course, Pirates of the Caribbean. The second was worse than the first, and the third was worse than the second. And I think, fortunately for all of us, I think the series is dead, in spite of having some very good actors, right? However, Godfather 1, 2, 3, 2 was better than 1, and 3 was better than 2. And of course, which is the longest running movie brand franchise? Now, I can't see your answers, but try and think for a minute. Which is the and that movie franchise has been currently in the news. Okay, so maybe some of you got this, and the longest running, most successful movie franchise in my mind is probably James Bond, right? And interestingly, James Bond as a character has been played by very different people, and every time they come out with a change, they bring in new things into the story. What Pierce Brosnan did, Sean Connery did not do, and what Daniel Craig is doing today, Pierce Brosnan or Sean Connery would not have done. So they put new stuff into it. So, but today, while brands are everywhere, there are huge challenges to brand builders. Okay, the first challenge, of course, is what Naomi Klein spoke about, which is savvy. Market, consumers are becoming very savvy. Markets are maturing. There is decreasing brand loyalty. And today, for example, before a person walks into a car dealership, he probably has read up everything about the car. So therefore, your car's salesman who's standing in the dealership has to sell a different story. He can't just tell the customer that this one has power window, or this one has ABS, or this one has thing. He has to think of something else because the customer already knows that. So one is the customer is becoming so much more knowledgeable. The second is brand families are becoming very complex. Today you go to a supermarket. Not today. I don't want you to go to the supermarket today. If you're going, please be careful. But in an average supermarket today, you have probably 20 different varieties of toothpaste. The Colgate itself is available in probably 4 or 5 or 6 different variants. And it's so difficult to differentiate between, say, Colgate Strong Teeth versus Colgate Active Salt versus this versus that, right? And of course, add to all this, in all our big stores, whether it is Reliance Smart or Big Bazaar, there are a lot of private labels, right? And the cost of product introduction, product support is increasing. So that is a second big problem. The third big problem is fragmenting of media coverage. Traditional media, and of course, today we are seeing a bigger problem because cinemas gone, newspapers are not being distributed in many cities. So traditional media's effectiveness, at least in the current situation, is even worse. New communication options like digital, etc., are coming up. And those of you who've been in business for a long time know that at one time, in the mid 80s, late 80s, 90s, you could take one spot on Doordarshan, on Mahabharata or Ramayana, and reach 30 to 40% of all the households which had television in India. Today, the largest viewed program on TV nationally is probably IPL. And if you take a spot on IPL, which will cost you a huge amount of money, you probably reach 3.5 to 3.8% of all the households. That's a very small number. But what is also masking is that today we probably have 200 million homes with television. So you're reaching a larger number in terms of numbers, though the percentage is extremely, extremely small. The fourth problem is an issue which has got me into trouble at some seminars, especially when the seminar is full of brand managers. Because the fourth problem I'm calling is the short-term orientation. Because every brand manager, when they start handling a brand, they want to leave their mark on the brand. They want to change stuff, and therefore they change the campaign. The easiest thing for them to do is change the agency, change the campaign, change the headline, change the baseline, and the brand starts zigzagging. When the brand starts zigzagging, the brand story gets lost, and you will not be able to build long-term equity with that brand. So these are primarily 4 big challenges for brand marketers. Some are in their control, some are outside their control. So what are strong brands, and what makes brands strong, and what can create brand value? So I think the foremost thing when it comes to brand building is, do you understand your customer? Are you doing research? Are you talking to customers? Are you focused on your customers? Now, I would strongly believe if you're in marketing, you've got to be spending at least 5 to 6 days every month in the field meeting customers. If you don't do that, you're not, I mean, you can do research. I think it's good. You do research, you learn a lot. But if you don't yourself go, you're going to miss out on a huge learning opportunity. The second is, what is your brand DNA? And how are you living your DNA? Are you living close to your DNA? Are you understanding your DNA? Are you putting stuff which is right for the DNA? Third is, are you doing innovations? I mean, there is no need to do big innovations. Are you at least doing small innovations to keep the brand momentum going? And the fourth is, are you investing for the long term? If you're not investing for the long term, you're not going to survive in the long term. So you got to focus both on top line and bottom line, but you got to look at the long term. So if you were to take branding and say, look, where does branding sit in the overall marketing dynamics? First, of course, what we call the STP or marketing, segmentation, targeting, and positioning, starts with segmentation, which is a segment of customers I'm going to go after. What is their profile? What will they want? The second is, of course, who's the target? Who's the target person I'm going to go after? And the third is positioning. How do I position my brand, which is somewhat different from what others are offering? And of course, how do I implement my marketing activities? So let's now jump to talk a little bit about positioning. I think we have another 20 minutes. So I'll go for another 5 to 7 minutes and then open up for questions. So what is brand positioning? What do you understand by brand positioning? So when I ask you, what is brand positioning of Nike, what will you write? If I ask you, what is the positioning of Apple, what will you write? Or if I ask you, what is the positioning of Lux soap, what will you write? Now, time and again, when I do this brand positioning workshop with clients, and I've been doing this for many years, often the mistake made is you mistake the tagline for the positioning. So let me just say what positioning is not. Positioning is not the tagline. Positioning is not the advertising slogan. Positioning is not the word for word message prospects, or neither is it a business plan. Positioning is really an exercise, which is a tool which you differentiate your brand from the others. It is not an emotional statement. It may contain emotion in it, but it's a factual statement. And everything you do, what we call go-to-market plan, is about what you're doing to take your brand into the market. This could involve selling, advertising, distribution, merchandising, training your salespeople, training your dealers. All that is go-to-market. Everything you do for the brand will come out of this mother lode, which is called positioning. It is a foundation for, you can't do advertising if you've not written a very clear, tight positioning statement. It is an internal tool. It is a battle cry for all marketing reps to rally behind. So let me ask a few questions. Okay, when you're writing a positioning statement, the criteria is a target audience persona very clear? Are you targeting one person? All brand positioning statements are written for one person in mind. What category are you targeting? What is the benefit are you offering? Is it a singular benefit? Is it a multiple benefit? How is the benefit relevant to your consumers? Is it sustainable? Is it believable? So there is this rub test, relevant, unique, believable. And how do you substantiate the benefit? And is it different? Is it defensible? So, for example, if you take a position statement for a brand called Listerine, this is how it will read. Healthy, proactive preventers, 35 years old, who want to do as much for their health as their money they can. Listerine is a germ-killing mouthwash brand. Okay, but what is the single-minded proposition? It gives you the confidence of a cleaner, healthier mouth. Why should a consumer believe you? I mean, you're a brand, you're trying to sell it, you're making this claim. Consumer will believe you because you say it is trusted to kill germs that cause gingivitis. We've got proof. It is respected by dental professionals because it has been clinically proven to be 34% more effective than brushing and flossing alone. So all good positioning statements have three components to it. The components are audience. What is the audience? What is the single-minded benefit? And what is the reason to believe? So we call it TA, SMP, and RTB. So whichever brand you're working on, you're planning to build, first thing you got to do is to write a positioning statement and cast it in stone. Obviously, before you write your positioning statement, you need to understand what your consumer is looking for. What does your brand offer? How is it different from other brands? Okay, and which is a particular target audience you're going to go after. And so that is your target audience. Then you have a single-minded proposition. What is that single thing I want to say? 35-year-old women are conscious about their beauty. Santur Beauty Soap provides younger looking skin because it contains the goodness of sandal and turmeric. So if you can take a minute and write a positioning statement for your brand, okay, which your brand, and don't think positioning statement should be only written for 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 crore brand. It can be written for even a small brand which is 2 crore, 3 crore, 4 crore, doesn't matter. A positioning statement is absolutely critical. It is your your North Pole star which guides which direction you're moving in. A slightly longer position statement. This is from Kevin Lane Keller's book, Strategic Brand Management, which is a target group. Who are you going to? Brand X is a brand which is a brand of soap, a brand of toothpaste, a brand of ERP. Competing mainly with whom? That offers relevant differentiating benefits. You talked about single-minded proposition and why, which is the reason to believe. Why should I believe you? And of course, brand character. I mean, we're getting to be a little more sophisticated. We're saying, look, the brand should have a character. The character could be one of a very serious person, someone who's slightly more humorous, funny, very scholarly, very human, very thing. And of course, as you dig further into brand management, for example, when I ask people, what is the position Hero Honda, you say, fill it, shut it, forget it. No, that is a headline and that is a baseline. The positioning is really the most fuel efficient motorcycle in India, which was offering 87 kilometers per liter. Why was it offering 87 kilometers per liter? Because of Honda technology and 4-stroke engine. Right? They did not talk of their style. They did not talk of pickup. They did not talk of load-bearing capacity. They only talked of one thing, which is fuel efficiency. And this, of course, went on to build a great brand, which became bigger than all the others. Right? And as we start working with brands, I mean, we talked of basics. As you get more and more sophisticated, you start doing what is called a brand key. A brand key actually has 9 different elements. What is the root strength? What is the competitive environment? What is the target? What is the insight? what are the benefits you're offering, what are the values, what are the reason to believe, what is the discriminator, what is the essence, right? All free. I mean, this is something I'm downloading from the net and sharing it. I do it in my workshops, which is Dove. What is the Dove? Dove is about, the key insight on Dove is that consumers feel soap leaves your skin very dry and tight, and therefore Dove is about real beauty, and it's about restoring immunity. So we started our journey at a very basic level. We started with what is a brand, how a brand is nothing more than a name which tells a story. Then we moved on to talk about what are the different types of brands which are around us. We talk about how brands are important, how are they important for consumers, how are they important for manufacturers. Then we moved on to look at how do you do your branding, and it starts with segmentation, targeting, positioning, and we dug deeper into positioning, learned how to write a positioning statement, and then we moved on to say what is a brand key and how do you write out a brand key for a brand. And I built my model called brand building Pentagon, which actually takes you through multiple stages of how do you go about building a brand, which is consumer analysis, social analysis, market analysis, company analysis, competency analysis to brand appraisal. Brand appraisal leads to brand definition. Brand definition leads to brand articulation, and then that leads to brand measurement, and then to brand expansion. So this is my brand building Pentagon model. And of course, this is something which again is from the book, again, Strategic Brand Management. Let me quickly go to the last slide, last two slides, and then we will have, I think, we will have, some time for questions. So Peter Drucker is a big believer in the fact that the whole purpose of business is to break out of bondage of misery, want, and marketing is a catalyst for transformation. And as Kotler said, branding is a foundation of marketing. Without branding, you don't have marketing. So we started the brand which tells a story. Here we are saying that a brand is a story that is always being told, right? So these are my 9 books. They're all available on Amazon, and you can reach me on, you can follow me on Twitter, you can reach me on LinkedIn. And now I'm going to stop sharing, and we will try and take some questions, right? Yeah, okay. Wow, got 19 questions. I don't know whether I can answer all these, but so it's session. Yeah. Okay, let me start. This is a Sesh asking a good question. I think B2B. There are 2 or 3 questions here which are on B2B. Can all of you hear me? I hope you can. Okay. What are a few things to keep in mind while attempting to build a B2B brand? How to differentiate a B2B brand when the B customer does not want our name, logo to be overly displayed in the product? Okay, great question. Absolutely great question. Now, obviously, a lot of stuff which I said is more focused on the B2C segment, right? B2B, a lot of these fundamentals still apply to B2B. Okay, it is not as if you don't need positioning in the case of B2B. In the case of B2B, your positioning could be service, could be quality, could be innovation, could be any of those. Now, those of you who want to understand a little bit more about B2B, I would suggest tomorrow we are going to talk about living the brand, which is largely B2B and largely service-oriented brands. And I think you will be able to get a flavor of that. And those of you who are probably supplying products or something, and the customer says, don't put your label on top of it, doesn't matter, because your customer is not the end buyer, right? Your customer is the current person. So don't worry about, so branding matters. In fact, B2B companies have great potential to do branding. Unfortunately, they're doing a lousy job. Okay, they have to first of all. First thing I do is look at your website. How good is it? Your customer is going to go to your website and look at your website. If your website looks 1960s or 1950s website, what impression are you going to give to them? And then, of course, how are you doing your marketing communication? How good are your brochures? How good are your people? How are they able to talk? So we'll talk a bit of all this tomorrow. Okay, so this question about Patanjali, and Patanjali is a bit of a pressure now, but Patanjali is really very interesting. He actually did Nirma, right? He offered products which are of similar quality at 30% less price, and he offered his own name, Baba. Baba Ramdev had a great following. He used this concept called own media. He was the media, and I don't have it. I can't share it here, but I have at one of our forums at the advertising Goa Fest. We had invited him, and you won't believe it. He did the entire Surya Namaskar in something like 15 seconds. It's amazing. The man is fantastic. I'm a big fan of Baba Ramdev. I've tried all his products, but I think he probably grabbed more than he can chew. Okay, so let me jump and okay. So Oreo, Naukri, Captain Cook, they all had money to spend on TV. Interesting. Naukri did not have too much money. In fact, Naukri got, I think, VC funding of 5 crores, and they took a risk and spent 2 crores on that ad. Right? They did not have too much money. But having said that, I agree. Startups don't have the kind of money which, say, an Oreo has or a Captain Cook has. So you got to figure out what to do. So today you have a lot of opportunity through digital marketing and targeted messaging. So you can go after specific targets through digital marketing. So the problem is everyone in India wants to build a national brand. Hello, you don't need to be national. You can build a strong brand by selling it in one state or 2 states or 3 states. If you're a small company, small startup, you can actually be very happy selling only in the city of Chennai or only in the city of Mumbai, right? So don't worry too much about money. Figure out what your plan is, and then you'll be able to do it. Okay, article. So Bhagavan Lu, you're asking any. So that's a question we should save for the third day when we're going to talk about building a personal brand. Okay, Prashant Singh. Do brands matter when the larger percentage of sales or even something as strongly associated with brand, I say footwear, in the last 4+ years have come from rip-offs that place themselves on the ready-to-access online delivery? Now, I'm not going to talk of, rip-offs is something which is the very bad underbelly of digital marketing. So you don't know whether you're buying a Nike or a Reebok, or is it a rip-off? It's the same thing on the roadside. You get all kinds of brands on the roadside. But I think the smarter consumer knows that when when a brand is available for, say, 1,500 rupees, and someone is saying the same brand is available for 500 rupees, it's a rip-off. Now, you're talking of shoes. You have rip-offs of Louis Vuitton bag, right? The original bag may cost $3,000. You have a rip-off which is available for $300. Okay, now Vivek Sharma. How to leverage brands in B2G? Oh, wow. Okay, so very interesting. I think this is a brilliant question. I had a strong bias against working with government organizations. So one of the early exposures I had was when I went to present to the Central Board of Direct Taxes, I think North Block. And it was an eye-opener. The kind of bureaucrats I met was phenomenal. And later they did something called VDIS, which is the Income Tax Declaration Scheme. So a lot of us approach government selling with a bias. At least I used to approach it with a negative bias. But then my dealing with UTI, when Mr. Damodaran was there, or my dealing with Vijayan in LIC, when he was the CMD of LIC, is eye-opening. I think the same principles will work, that whatever you're doing on B2B will work. And my submission, I don't know enough, but I've done fair bit of business with public sector undertaking, whether it is UTI, LIC, Indian Oil, IDBI. I've had great relationships. With the government department, you got to be ready to walk. So sorry, this is what I can do. This is what I can't do. This is what my brand stands for. Okay. Let me jump ahead. Indranil Basu, a brand manager, should be worried about positioning or positional advantage? Well, Indranil, this is a very, you're asking a very kind of a nuanced question. Positioning should give you a positional advantage. That's the whole purpose of writing the positioning. If the positioning is exactly what your competitor is saying, that's not give you an advantage, right? So you got to sit. Positioning statement is not something you sit and write in a flash. You may write it once, twice, 3 times, 5 times, and you may polish it, refine it, test it with consumers, with associates, with your agency, with your supplier, and then finalize it. And once you finalize your positioning statement, stick to it. Don't keep changing it every month. Okay. The sharing the seminar, I think a recording should be available. Suman Kabra, interesting question. Discount, yes. Discounts basically destroy brand value. So if you're going to give discounts, you got to be careful when you should give it, when you should turn it off, and what impact will it have on your how positioning is saturated. Rituparna is asking a good question. She says, every category is saturated today. Name a category which is not saturated. There are probably 100 brands of hatchback and sedan cars in this country. There are probably 50 brands of soap, 30-40 brands of toothpaste. Every brand is saturated. Because categories are saturated, it is all the more important for you to get your positioning, get your brand key right. Okay. Sorry, I think we've hit our 1 hour and 30 minutes. You're asking a lot of good questions. Branding, start with segmentation. No, okay. Okay, Sunny, I will take another 5 minutes and answer a few more questions since we lost a few minutes at the beginning. Marketing starts with segmentation, then targeting, and then positioning. Don't do it the other way. Start with which segment am I going to appeal to. Segment could be geographical, benefit-oriented segment, or psychographic segment the market, do the market I'm going to go after. And in that market, who's my target person? Who's the person I need to sell my product benefits to? Once you got that right, then write your positioning statement. Positioning statement, then you need to look at your own product, find out what is good in it, how is it different from competition, and then you write your positioning. So let me jump ahead. Okay, good. Does every business need to have a brand irrespective of its size? Yes, I think so. I'm, Ashish Kumar Chaudhary. You are a brand. Everyone is a brand. That's what we're going to talk about on the third day. But everyone is a brand. So don't forget, every business is a brand. Every business needs to have an identity. A lot of times I see that, the name board is written with one name, and then you ask that shopkeeper for a card. The card gives a different font, a different name, and it's a whole lot of confusion, right? Every business needs a brand. Okay, good. Kunal Bundel's good question. Tangible, intangible. Tomorrow we're going to be talking a lot about different varieties of service brands, and I think I'll hopefully answer this tomorrow. For a startup, how can we position while considering the market is Vigneshwar Gandhi? Thank you. Good question. If you're in a new category, we are looking at both ends, right? You're saying I'm in a new category. How do I do branding? And someone asked the question, I'm in a mature category. There are so many brands. So branding you have to do whether you're in a mature category or a new category. A new category, the world is open. You can position your brand in one way, and maybe 3, 4, 6 months later, you can change the position depending on what works. So before you do your positioning, maybe you need to test 2 or 3 positioning options and see what really works for you. Okay. Okay. Pharmaceutical brand, interesting. Okay. I spent 6 years in pharmaceuticals. I worked on several pharma brands like Brufen, Canetone, and of course on Colder and Strepsils and Bernol. My favorite brand would probably be Digene, because in spite of such a cluttered antacid market, the brand has continued to succeed and be the #1 brand in the country. And an ex-colleague of mine, Gauri Chowdhury, has recently written a book called Perfect Pill, where I've written the foreword, which is about every category in even the pharma sector, which is full of what we call branded generics. There is an opportunity for you to do branding, but you got to go through. In her book, she's put down 10 steps on how to go through and get your branding right. I'm in the decorative paint industry, a sector where involvement of customers. Okay. So, if you're in the decorative paint industry, it's a myth to believe that consumer doesn't matter at all. Consumer matters. But of course, painter cannot be overruled by the consumer. But the painter is also not a fool. If the consumer says, Nerolac ka ye naya paint acha hai kya? Painter will say acha hai. If the consumer says, nahi, ye Nippon paint ka acha hai kya? Painter will say acha hai. So the painter actually has to get the job done. Okay, the painter doesn't give you any guarantee. The consumer is going to write the bill. So I think consumer level brand, of course, in different categories, it is different. I'm not saying a paint is a category like soap or toothpaste, paint or steel or cement. These are complex categories. But even in those, for example, in cement, which is like a commodity, every cement is same. Ultratech is a strong brand. Okay, Ambuja is a strong brand. I remember we had launched a brand called Birla Super, which was at that time launched as the 53 grade cement. We use the term 53 grade, though L&T cement is already available at 53 grade. So, Birla Super became a very successful. So I think I just thank you very much. You have just too many questions to answer. So I think we have overshot our time. So let me just thank you for your participation. I think most of you must be at home. So it's lunchtime. So enjoy your lunch. Have a light lunch. Just because you're at home, don't end up eating too much. Because remember, your position is going to get compromised. If you eat too much, from a thin position, you will go to a fat position. That's not something IIT Madras Alumni Association wants to be blamed for. So once again, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. I'm sure that some of you will be there tomorrow and day after, and maybe day after we will spend more time on questions. Maybe we'll take questions from all the 2 sessions. Tomorrow again is a very intense session. It's a fairly long, I think it's longer session than today. So I hope I will have some time to answer questions. But thank you very much. There are a lot of good questions here. Like I said, please note them down on a separate pad, and then maybe tomorrow and then day after we will try and answer some of these questions. So with that, thank you very much, and have a safe day forward, and see some of you tomorrow. So thank you, and God bless, and stay safe.